When reading the Bible, one of the things that I found to be helpful in my studies is understanding the types of Egyptians. Okay. Um, there are about 4 types of Egyptians that ruled this land. And the one that we've been given, well, the images that have been presented to us are the Mediterranean Egyptians. The Mediterranean Egyptians ruled between the Old and New Testament. It was a very short period. But what's missing from these images are the African, quote unquote, Egyptians. I want to be clear that the word Egypt is a Greco-Roman word that they created. Okay, somebody put it in the Bible. But the people who lived in Egypt from Genesis to the last book of the Old Testament would not recognize this name because they were of African descent. So we're talking about possibly millions, definitely thousands of years of African rule. And therefore, the culture is different. Some of the things that we are being told that the Egyptians did, like you'll hear a lot of things about lice. Well, the reason you're hearing about lice, and we know that most of the time lice attaches itself to straight hair, it is because the Egyptians, the Mediterranean Egyptians, had a different hair type than the indigenous African people. So we want to, as we explore Egypt, as we explore the culture, we want to understand the differences between the culture of the Mediterranean Egyptians and the African descendants, the African Egyptians, who are more than likely our ancestors. They might be ancestors of all Africans, but I doubt it. I would say that the descendants of Cain and the descendants of Seth are different than the descendants of Noah. They all had the same, possibly the same traditions, different rituals. The Mediterranean Egyptians had a thing about the sun. The sun was not their friend. Okay. They used, I'm not sure what calendar they used, but the Romans came along, and the sun was not the friend of the Romans either. The Romans adopted a calendar that's based on it's based on the moon. Okay, and maybe lunar and maybe solar. But these are some of the things that we should be aware of when we're studying the Bible. Something else, if you can claim to be a Hebrew, I want you to take a look at this map. There are the Nubians there. You can claim to be a Nubian. If you can claim to be a Hebrew, you can claim to be a Nubian. You can claim to be from the tribe of Massa. You can claim to be a Canaanite. There are so many other tribes that we can claim to be other than Hebrew. So please consider that. Consider all of the people who lived in this land and what they all adopted and what they took out of it. That the pieces that they took were once a whole, and that whole may have traveled throughout Africa. When I say the whole, I'm talking about the whole of a culture. So consider that when you're reading the Bible. These are not Mediterranean people. That most of them were probably of African descent, meaning tightly coiled hair. And then you may have had another group that's more Samoan. If we know what the Samoans are, they may have been a part of this too. And one of the reasons I'm saying that is because of Samson, and Samson's hair, and the fact that Samson's hair was weaved means that he may have had straight hair. And in order to put it in the braids, he needed some type of string. Consider that when reading the Bible. This is Nisi, the administrator. Some people know me as Diane. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them. And as always, please post your opinions in the comment section.